Most of us never imagined it could happen in this country, and yet today it did happen. A major American newspaper published a story, apparently an entirely accurate story, about a presidential candidate. The tech monopolies that control American media feared this story might hurt that candidate, whom they favor. So 3 weeks before a national election, they shut the whole thing down. They prevented the public from reading the news. They didn't apologize for doing this. They didn't bother to make up reasonable-sounding justifications for it. They just did it, exactly as the Chinese government does. These are monopolies. They have all the power. You have none. They don't have to care what you think, and they don't.
Can you imagine a world where just a few people control the free flow of information? Where these people can control what the public can and cannot see? Which news information is valid, which one is fake news? Can you imagine a world where these people can prevent the public from seeing and hearing what its government has to say? Well, you don't need to imagine much. Welcome to America 2020. But is it really that bad? Let's get into it. So let's start with a quick recap of the story that broke the internet yesterday. The New York Post published a story yesterday, an expose, exposing Hunter Biden's emails and relationship with a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma. Hunter Biden has a position in Burisma where he's making $50,000 a month for just sitting on the board. The emails leaked by the New York Post show that Hunter had this position because of the influence held by his daddy, who at the time was Vice President Joe Biden. The emails show that Hunter set up a meeting between the executives of Burisma and his daddy, Joe Biden. This is very corrupt. It's important to note that Joe Biden, on his position as VP Biden at the time, who was in charge of the foreign policy to Ukraine, he conditioned a $1 billion aid package to Ukraine on the condition that Ukraine fired a prosecutor who was investigating his son and Burisma. And the prosecutor was fired. Today, the New York Post published another story showing Hunter Biden relationships not just in Ukraine, but in China, alleging that Hunter Biden went around Chinese companies collecting bags of cash, millions of dollars for consulting fees, instructional fees, and he also received millions of dollars because his law firm was retained by these Chinese companies. The emails also show that Joe Biden's brother, James Biden, and his wife, Sarah Biden, went on a shopping spree of $100,000 provided by Chinese companies. So that's the story. Is it true? I think so. Does it matter? No. The main story is censoring. Yesterday I showed you that Twitter and Facebook were censoring and blocking the story from being shared. However, the problem was a lot worse than that. The Trump campaign tried sharing the story and it was blocked from doing so. Is that election interference? Maybe. Comment your opinion down below. The most egregious part though is when the beautiful Kylie McEnany tried sharing the story, she was blocked, and then her account was locked. We're talking about the press secretary to the president of the United States of America. What the fuck is Twitter doing? Who do they think they are that they could just prevent the public from seeing what she has to say? When Jack, the founder and CEO of Twitter, created the company, he intended it for it to be the public square. In fact, he had this tweet: "We believe many people use Twitter as a digital public square. They gather from all around the world to see what's happening and have a conversation about what they see." You're right, Jack. Twitter is the modern public square, and therefore it must be regulated like a public utility. Not only is most of our political discourse held on platforms like Twitter or Facebook, but it's also the place where most people get their breaking news. In fact, 65% of people get their breaking news from social media platforms. And Jack, you can't prevent those people from having access to that information. You just can't. Sorry. The same way your water can't be shut off from sharing information that the water company does not like, Twitter cannot ban you or block you from sharing information it does not like. After all, it is the modern public square. Right, Jack? And you know what's even worse? Twitter and Facebook claiming that the story is misinformation is the basis that the Biden campaign is using to discredit the story. It's unbelievable. And then the Biden campaign goes out and says that while there was no formal meeting in the books with the Burisma executive, they cannot rule out a possibility that VP Biden met with the Burisma executive in some kind of informal interaction. They're basically admitting it, but no. Here's the Biden campaign saying that it's fake news because Twitter said so.
I also want to ask you, Twitter has been under a little bit of fire for blocking tweets connected to this recent New York Post article about Hunter Biden's connections in Ukraine and Joe Biden's alleged involvement when he was vice president. What is your campaign response to this article, and do you think that Twitter is doing the right thing here?
Well, look, I think Twitter's response to the actual article itself makes clear that these, purported allegations are false and they're not true.
But is it really fake news? If you search on Google, Joe Biden saying that he got the Ukrainian prosecutor fired, you're not going to find anything. Actually, you're going to find a bunch of stories saying that's not true. I knew I remembered seeing it though. I knew I wasn't crazy. So I said, maybe if I check on Bing, I'll find something. I went on Bing, I put copy paste from where I searched on Google, and boom. First hit is the video of Joe Biden saying how he got the prosecutor fired. How's that for big tech censorship? Here's a video of Joe Biden showing off about how he got the Ukrainian prosecutor fired. Check it out.
No, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Is that not a quid pro quo? Impeach him! Then we have this beautiful headline from the newspaper, The Washington Post. As you can see, the headline reads that Biden did not in fact push out a Ukrainian prosecutor, even though we all just saw that he did. I also might have believed the story if the Washington Post had not endorsed President Joe Biden. Why is the news organization endorsing a president? That's when you know you're not a newspaper, you're an activist organization. Nice! When Twitter realized it made a huge mistake, it tried giving us a pathetic excuse that they blocked the story because it contained hacked information. Are they going to block all things that have hacked information? Like, I don't know, the Panama Papers, the Pentagon Papers? How about Trump's tax returns? Nah, not those. Those are fine. Big tech and the Democratic establishment, I'm not saying Democrats, I'm saying the Democratic establishment, are in an incestuous relationship. For example, Kamala Harris's press secretary left her in August and now is Twitter's top communications official. So naturally, Trump and conservative posts are going to be repressed. Nice. Given the fact that our public squares are being dominated by a few big tech companies, isn't it time we regulate them like public utilities? They are necessary to our lives and will become even more so in the years to come. Comment your opinion down below. Like, subscribe. Ginger out.